I quite often see guys and they ask, what is the best exhaust to put on these cars? What is the best camshaft to put in my LS? And probably one of the most commented questions that I have is the fast intake manifold worth it? It's a $1,300 intake, give or take. You know, is it really worth it for the price point? And that is not a simple yes or no answer. So give me a few minutes and let me dive into this topic for you. So as you can see, this is my fast LSXR 102 intake manifold on my LS2 ProCharge Corvette. And as I said before, this is like a $1,350 intake manifold. I think that's what they're up to now for these cars, for the LS1, LS2, LS3, whatever platform it is. And a lot of people say, well, is it worth it? You know, that's a big chunk of change to shell out. And to be quite simple, it really depends on the application. So for example, if you guys know anything about these platforms, the LS2 had the worst flowing intake manifold basically out of all the LSs. So the first mod I did was headers, and then I put that intake manifold on. But the gain that I got from the headers was drastically more than I got from my $1,200 intake. And I did not understand at all. I said, well, I just spent $1,200 and this is one of the best intakes you can buy for an LS2. Why did I only pick up, you know, like a tenth, or I think it was like a tenth and a half in the quarter mile? I was like, man, I was expecting such drastic numbers. Well, the real simple truth is this intake can only do as much as the camshaft and heads can move the air of. So for example, on an LS2, that camshaft cannot move the air out any faster than this intake is capable of moving it in per se. So even though this intake is capable of flowing more air in, the stock camshaft just simply cannot get it out. On an LS3 setup, it's really different. If you had an LS3 setup and you weren't trying to make 700 or 800 horsepower, I would say don't put this on. If you're just wanting a, you know, maybe even a camshaft and headers, I would say run the LS3 intake manifold, or even GPI does a rod mod for $400 or $500. That is just a better solution, bang for your buck. Now, like I said, it's not just a simple yes or no. On this setup, this ProCharger paired with this intake has done great for me. If I was wanting to make a really high horsepower build, if I was wanting to do heads cam on this LS2, or if I was doing a heads cam LS3 or a blower cam LS3, I would choose this intake manifold because the way that it would respond with a camshaft or a camshaft and boost or heads cam would be drastic compared to just, you know, a cold air intake headers. Or maybe like a small stage 1 cam, it's not going to pick up nearly as much. It all depends on the application of the car. If you weren't trying to chase over 500 horsepower, I wouldn't even look into this. Now, like on the LS2 aspect, like I just said, if I was wanting to do an NA LS2 and I put a camshaft in it, maybe we'll call it a BTR stage 3, and I ported these 243s, and I was wanting to make max NA power, would I pick this? Yeah, I probably would. I know people will tend to argue on this. They'll be like, well, if you were wanting to make max power, why not run the high ram, or why not run the BTR Trinity? Well, I personally have no experience with the BTR Trinity. I've heard great things about them, but I've never had one on a car. And a high ram isn't gonna probably do much good on this car because I'm shifting it at like 6,700, 6,800 RPM. Those high rams are meant to be revved over 7,000. So it's all dependent on the application of the car. For a lot of your every weekend style builds that you'll see out there, a good solid paired LS3 with a camshaft and headers really will do completely fine on a stock LS3 manifold. And if you did want to pick up quote unquote cheap power, GPI does do the rod mod, like I said, and I've basically heard no negative reviews on that. And it's probably going to be a very similar power increase for essentially a half to almost a third of the cost of that intake manifold. Now, let me preference this again. In no way am I saying this intake manifold is bad. This is one of the best intake manifolds on the market, and it has been for like literally a decade, if not more. And if I was going any further horsepower on this build, and I didn't have this, I would 100% do this next, like right after the camshaft, because it would be a no-brainer power increase. To put it simply, the more mods you have on this car, the better this intake's gonna perform. These intakes respond super strongly to heads cam packages, aggressive milling on your cylinder heads, boost with a cam combo, aggressive cams with nitrous. So the more that you have done to your car, this intake will work better for you. If you are maximizing horsepower in every aspect, this is the intake that you wanna choose. I hope this was informational. I hope it was helpful for you. If it was, please like and subscribe. And if you think there's a better intake manifold out there, tell me in the comments. I mean, I'm not the all-knower of LS, so let me know what's worked for you. But that's all I got for now, guys, so peace out. See you in the next one.